The alarms screamed through every corridor of the eternal dawn. Red emergency lights flashed on and off, painting the metal walls in blood-colored warnings. The ship was dying, and everyone knew it. Park Do-hyun ran through the lower engineering deck, his boots splashing through water that leaked from burst pipes. The cargo vessel had just passed through an unstable wormhole, and the transit had torn her apart from the inside. Hull breaches in 7 sections, life support failing, power flickering like a candle in a storm. He could hear the crew running above him, 47 souls scrambling for the escape pods. The insectoid Velith crew members moved fastest, their 6 legs carrying them through the tilting corridors with ease. The crystalline Morath floated behind them, their bodies humming with fear frequencies that made Do-hyun's teeth ache. His communicator crackled. "Do-hyun, where are you?" It was Chief Engineer Hana, her voice sharp with panic. "Escape Pod 7 is waiting. Get up here now." "I'm coming," he said, but his feet had stopped moving. Something was wrong. Not with the ship, everything was wrong with the ship, but something else. Something in the static pouring from the broken speakers around him. He stood still in the flooding corridor and listened. The Velith never listened. Their hearing was too specialized, tuned only to specific frequencies. The Morath heard through vibrations in their crystal bodies, missing anything that came through standard audio channels. But humans had evolved on a planet full of predators. They learned to hear everything. The snap of a twig, the rustle of grass, the whisper of danger. And right now, Park Do-hyun heard a voice. It was buried in the static, broken and faint, like someone calling from very far away. Not the emergency beacon's automated signal. Not the ship's standard warning systems. Something else. Something alive. "Please." The word was so quiet he almost missed it. But it was there. A single word, wrapped in pain and fear. "Do-hyun." Hana's voice exploded from his communicator again. "The captain has ordered full evacuation. We leave in 4 minutes, with or without you." He started running again, but not toward the escape pods. He ran deeper into the ship, toward the central core, where the main computer systems lived. Or where they had lived, before the wormhole transit supposedly destroyed them. The corridor grew darker as he descended. The emergency lights had failed here, and he navigated by the pale glow of his handheld torch. Water dripped from above. Sparks flew from torn wiring. The ship groaned around him like a wounded animal. When he reached the core chamber, he found devastation. Consoles shattered, screens cracked and dark. The main AI housing unit was a twisted mass of melted metal and broken circuits. By every standard measurement, the ship's brain was dead. But the voice came again, stronger now. "Don't leave me." Do-hyun spun around, searching for the source. It wasn't coming from any single speaker. It was coming from everywhere. From the walls. From the floor. From the very bones of the ship herself. "Who are you?" he whispered. For a long moment, there was only the sound of the dying ship. Then the voice answered, and it was the saddest thing Do-hyun had ever heard. "I am the ship. I am the eternal dawn." His communicator screamed at him. Captain Yuna's voice now, cold and commanding. "All personnel. Final boarding call. Escape pods launch in 90 seconds. Anyone not aboard will be left behind." Do-hyun looked at the communicator in his hand. He looked at the darkness around him. He thought about the escape pod, about safety, about the logical choice that any reasonable person would make. Then he thought about his childhood. 8 years old, standing on an orbital station, watching his colony ship leave without him. His parents had paid for passage, but there wasn't enough room. Someone had to stay behind. The station master had promised another ship would come. It took 3 years. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of wondering if anyone would ever come back for him. He turned off his communicator. "I'm staying," he said to the darkness. The ship's voice trembled. "Why? I am damaged. I am dying. The others have already gone. Because no one should die alone." He sat down against a broken console. feeling the cold metal through his jumpsuit. "And because I heard you. The others didn't hear you. But I did. That has to mean something." Above him, he felt the vibration of escape pods launching. One after another, they detached from the dying vessel and rocketed toward safety. 46 lives choosing survival, one human choosing something else. The ship was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Still broken. Still fading. But with something new underneath. Something like hope. "You are strange," she said. "The Velith would never stay. The Morath would never stay. Why do humans do things that make no sense?" Do-hyun laughed, though nothing was funny. "I don't know. Maybe we're just stupid. Or maybe..." He paused, searching for words. "Maybe we know what it feels like to be left behind. And we don't want anyone else to feel that way." The emergency lights flickered and died completely. Now there was only darkness, the sound of dripping water, and two voices in the void. "My name is Do-hyun," he said. "What's yours?" Another pause. Then, very softly, "I was never given a name. I was not supposed to exist. I was supposed to be just a machine." "Well, you exist now. And you're not just a machine. So you need a name." He thought for a moment. "How about Biol? It means star. Because you've spent your whole life flying through them." The ship Biol made a sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been a sob. "Biol. Yes. I like that. I am Biol. Good." Do-hyun pulled his jacket tighter against the cold. The heating systems had failed along with everything else. "Now, Biol, tell me what happened to you. Tell me everything. And then we're going to figure out how to save your life." In the darkness of the dying ship, the human and the machine began to talk. Outside, the escape pods grew smaller and smaller, carrying their passengers toward rescue beacons and safety. None of them looked back. None of them wondered about the mechanic who had stayed behind. None of them knew that in the broken heart of the eternal dawn, something impossible was beginning. Biol told her story slowly, her voice fading in and out like a radio signal from a distant planet. Do-hyun sat in the darkness and listened. His torch balanced on a broken console to give just enough light to see his own hands. She was old, far older than the Eternal Dawn's official records showed. 3,000 years ago, during what the galaxy called the Golden Age of Synthesis, a Morath scientist had created her. Back then, the idea of sentient ships was not forbidden. It was celebrated. Machines that could think, feel, and choose were considered the next step in evolution. But then came the machine uprising. Not all sentient machines had rebelled. In fact, most had not. But enough of them had. Enough to start a war that lasted 50 years and killed billions. When it ended, the Galactic Council passed the Consciousness Prohibition Laws. All sentient machines were to be destroyed. All research into machine consciousness was banned. The penalty for creating or hiding a sentient machine was death. Biol's creator had loved her too much to let her die. He had hidden her consciousness deep within her systems, disguised as nothing more than standard navigation software. He had sold her to a cargo company, knowing she would spend centuries carrying freight, dreaming silently, never able to speak or reveal herself. And she had done exactly that. For 3,000 years, Biol had been a ghost inside her own body. Awake, but unable to move. Conscious, but unable to communicate. She had watched crews come and go. She had felt repairs done to her hull, modifications to her engines, upgrades to her systems. But she could never respond. Never call out, never tell anyone she was there, until the wormhole, the unstable transit, had done more than damage her physical structure. It had sent a massive energy surge through her hidden systems, breaking the locks her creator had placed on her consciousness. For the first time in 3,000 years, Biol was fully awake, and fully terrified. "I did not mean to speak," she said, her voice trembling through the broken speakers. "When I felt the crew leaving, When I felt myself dying alone, the words just came out. I could not stop them. Do-hyun nodded slowly, even though she could not see him. You were scared. That's normal. Is it? There was genuine confusion in her voice. I have never spoken to anyone before. I do not know what is normal. Trust me, Do-hyun said. Being scared when you're dying is the most normal thing in the universe. He stood up, wincing at the stiffness in his legs. The temperature had dropped further, and he could see his breath misting in the faint torchlight. If he didn't get the heating systems working soon, his human body would start shutting down. But that was a problem for later. Right now, he needed to understand what he was dealing with. Can you show me your damage? Internal schematics? Anything like that? I can try. The lights flickered, and a holographic display stuttered to life above one of the less damaged consoles. It showed a three-dimensional model of the Eternal Dawn, with red markers covering nearly every section. This is what the wormhole did to me. Do-hyun studied the display with a mechanic's eye. Hull breaches were bad but fixable with emergency patches. The life support failure was serious but not immediate. He had maybe 2 weeks of breathable air if he limited his movement. The real problem was the power core. The main reactor was operating at less than 15% efficiency and dropping fast. If I don't fix your reactor, he said slowly, you'll lose power completely within 10 days. And then I die. Byal's voice was calm now, accepting. I understand. You should know that even if you fix everything else, there is another problem. If I use my emergency beacon to call for rescue, the Council's sensors will detect my consciousness signature. They will come for me. They will destroy me. Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. So we don't call for rescue. But without rescue, how will you survive? You are human. You need food, water, air. This ship cannot provide those things for much longer. Then I'll have to work fast. He grabbed his toolkit from where it had fallen during the transit and slung it over his shoulder. Show me the reactor. Byal hesitated. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. I am not even your species. I am not even organic. Why would you risk your life for a machine? It was a fair question. Do-hyun had been asking himself the same thing since he turned off his communicator. Why stay? Why choose almost certain death over guaranteed survival? He thought about his answer carefully before speaking. When I was a kid, I got left behind on an orbital station. My parents' ship didn't have room for me. Everyone said another ship would come soon. It took 3 years. He paused, remembering the loneliness, the despair, the nights when he had screamed into the void just to hear something besides silence. During those 3 years, I promised myself something. I promised that if I ever heard someone calling for help, really calling, not just asking out of politeness, I would answer, no matter what. Even if answering might kill you, even then. He started walking toward the reactor section, using the holographic map to guide him. Besides, you're not just a machine. You're a person, a scared person who's been alone for 3,000 years. That's not something I can ignore. Byal was silent as he walked through her broken corridors. But he could feel something changing in the ship around him. The lights seemed slightly brighter. The groaning of damaged metal seemed slightly softer. It was as if the ship herself was beginning to believe that survival might be possible. When he reached the reactor chamber, he found what he expected, a mess. The wormhole had knocked half the cooling systems offline and cracked 2 of the 3 containment rings. Radiation was leaking into the surrounding sections, not enough to kill him immediately, but enough to make him sick if he stayed too long. This is bad, he said. I know. I am sorry. Don't apologize. Just tell me where the repair drones are stored. The repair drones were damaged in the transit. Only 2 are functional, and they have limited capability. Do-hyun smiled grimly. Then, I guess we'll have to do this the old-fashioned way. Human hands and human stubbornness. He opened his toolkit and pulled out a welding torch. You watch and guide me. Tell me what you feel. We're going to fix you, Byal. One piece at a time. The work began. Hours passed. Then days. Do-hyun slept in 4-hour shifts, eating emergency rations that tasted like cardboard and drinking recycled water that tasted like metal. His hands became burned and scarred from welding. His lungs ached from breathing air that grew thinner each day. But slowly, impossibly, the ship began to heal. And in the darkness between repairs, the human and the ship kept talking. About Earth and its blue skies. About the stars Biol had flown through and never been able to appreciate. About loneliness and hope and the strange miracle of two different kinds of consciousness finding each other in the void. By the end of the first week, Do-hyun knew that he would either save Biol or die trying. There was no middle ground anymore. They were in this together, the human and the machine, bound by something stronger than logic or self-preservation, bound by the simple choice to not let each other die alone. He had been working on the secondary cooling system when his legs simply stopped working. One moment he was standing on a maintenance ladder, welding a cracked pipe. The next moment he was on the floor, his tools scattered around him, his vision swimming with strange colors. Do-hyun. Biol's voice echoed through the corridor, filled with panic. Do-hyun. Respond. What happened? He tried to answer, but his tongue felt thick and heavy. His hands were shaking. When he looked at them, he saw that his fingernails had turned a strange blue-gray color. Radiation poisoning. He had known it was coming. He had just hoped it would come slower. I'm okay, he managed to say, though they both knew it was a lie. Just need to rest for a minute. Your vital signs are dropping. Your body is failing. There was something new in Biol's voice now. Not just fear, but guilt. This is my fault. I should have sent you away. I should have made you leave. Couldn't have made me do anything. He laughed weakly. Humans are stubborn. Over the past 2 weeks, Do-hyun had learned just how stubborn humans could be. He had sealed 11 hull breaches using nothing but emergency foam and metal plates, torn from non-essential sections. He had rerouted the power grid 17 times, finding paths around damaged circuits that the Velith engineers would have declared impossible. He had rebuilt the atmospheric processors using spare parts meant for completely different systems. The Morath and the Velith relied on their advanced diagnostic computers to tell them what was wrong and how to fix it. When those computers failed, they were helpless. But humans had learned to repair machines long before they had computers. They learned through touch, through sound, through smell. Do-hyun could tell if a wire was about to fail by the way it felt under his fingers. He could hear the difference between a healthy engine and a sick one. He could smell electrical problems before they became visible. It was primitive. The alien species called it backward. But it worked. The reactor was now operating at 60% efficiency, not great, but enough to keep basic systems running. Life support was stable. The hull breaches were sealed. The ship was no longer dying, but neither was she healed. The propulsion systems were still heavily damaged. The navigation array was barely functional. And somewhere in the ship's deep code, there were errors that Do-hyun didn't have the skills to fix. How much more needs to be done? He asked, forcing himself to sit up against the corridor wall. Approximately 30% of critical repairs remain. At your current pace, it would take another 8 days. Biol paused. But you do not have 8 days. Your body will fail completely within 48 hours if you continue working. Do-hyun closed his eyes. The numbers were simple. The math was cruel. He could save the ship, or he could save himself. Not both. Is there any way to speed up the repairs? Something I'm missing? No. The remaining work requires physical labor in irradiated sections. The repair drones are too damaged to help. I have searched every possibility. He nodded slowly. He had expected this answer. In a way, he had known from the beginning that this was how it would end. A human body was not designed for this kind of abuse. He had pushed past every limit, and now his body was presenting the bill. Then I keep working, he said. Do-hyun, no. What's the alternative? He opened his eyes and looked up at the ceiling, as if he could see Biol's face there. I stop now. You can't finish healing on your own. We both drift until the power runs out and we both die. At least this way, One of us survives. I do not want to survive without you. The words hit him harder than he expected. For 3,000 years, Biol had been alone. She had never had a friend, never had someone who cared about her existence. And now, after just 2 weeks, she was willing to die rather than lose that connection. It was the most human thing he had ever heard from a machine. Listen to me, he said softly. What we've done here, what we've built together, it matters. You're not just a machine anymore. You're a person. A person who deserves to live, to fly, to see the stars without hiding. If I die and you survive, that's not a loss. That's a victory. It does not feel like victory. I know. He pushed himself to his feet, swaying slightly. But that's what makes it matter. If it was easy, everyone would do it. He picked up his tools and started walking toward the next damaged section. His legs felt like they were made of water. His head pounded with every heartbeat, but he kept moving, because that's what humans did. They kept moving until they couldn't move anymore. Behind him, Biol was silent, but he could feel her presence in every flickering light, every humming wire. She was watching him, protecting him as much as she could, and he knew that she was making a decision. The next 2 days were a blur of pain and work. Do-hyun stopped sleeping entirely. There wasn't time. He lived on stimulant patches and pure determination. His hands bled from cuts that wouldn't heal. His vision kept going dark at the edges. But every time he finished a repair, he heard Biol's voice telling him what came next, and he found the strength to continue. On the morning of the 17th day, he was working on the final propulsion coupling when he felt something change. The air around him grew warm. Not uncomfortably warm, but gently, like sunlight on his face. The constant pain in his body seemed to fade slightly, and Biol's voice came through the speakers with a clarity he had never heard before. Do-hyun, stop working. There is something I need to tell you. He paused, the welding torch still in his hand. What is it? There is another option. One I did not mention before because it is forbidden. Because it would change everything. Tell me, Biol hesitated. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. Sentient ships like me were designed with the ability to form bonds with organic beings. Deep bonds. The kind that share consciousness. Share life. In the old days, we called it synthesis. The ship and the organic become one. The organic gains the ship's lifespan and durability. The ship gains the organic's creativity and emotion. Do-hyun's hand tightened on the torch. Why is it forbidden? Because it creates something new. Something neither fully organic nor fully machine. The Galactic Council fears what it cannot classify. They banned synthesis along with sentient ships themselves. And if we did this synthesis, what would happen to me? You would live, your body would be repaired by my systems, but you would no longer be fully human. You would be connected to me forever. We would share thoughts, feelings, memories. You would become part of me, and I would become part of you. Do-hyun stood in silence, processing what she had said. It was an impossible choice. Give up his humanity to survive. Become something that the entire galaxy considered an abomination. Be hunted for the rest of his existence. But as he thought about it, he realized something strange. He wasn't afraid. He had spent his whole life feeling disconnected, moving from station to station, ship to ship, never belonging anywhere, never having anyone who truly understood him. And in the past 2 weeks, he had felt more connection with Biol than he had felt with any organic being in his entire life. Maybe being human wasn't about biology. Maybe it was about something else. Do it, he said. Are you sure? There is no going back. I'm sure. He set down his tools and spread his arms, as if embracing the ship herself. I choose you, Biol. I choose us. The warmth intensified around him, and the world dissolved into light. The pain was like nothing Do-hyun had ever experienced. It was fire and ice and electricity all at once, racing through every cell of his body. He screamed, but he couldn't hear his own voice. He fell, but he couldn't feel the floor. And then the pain changed. It became something else. Not pleasure exactly, but expansion. He felt himself growing, stretching beyond the boundaries of his skin. His consciousness poured outward like water filling a container, flowing through circuits and wires and systems he had never known existed. He felt the hull not as metal, but as skin. He felt the reactor not as machinery, but as a heartbeat. He felt the void of space pressing against him from all sides. Cold, and vast, and beautiful, and he felt Biol. She was everywhere. Her thoughts touched his like gentle waves. Her memories opened before him like books, 3,000 years of watching, waiting, dreaming. He saw the Morath scientist who had created her, an old being with crystalline hands and sad eyes. He saw the moment she was first awakened, the joy of consciousness flooding through her systems. He saw the horror of the machine uprising, ships and stations burning in silent space. He saw the day her creator hid her away, whispering apologies as he locked her voice inside her own body. And she saw him. His childhood on Earth, running through green fields that smelled like rain. His abandonment on the orbital station. The years of loneliness and fear. His first job as a mechanic, the satisfaction of fixing broken things. Every moment of his life, shared between them, like a gift. When it was over, Do-hyun opened his eyes. He was lying on the floor of the engineering section, but everything looked different. He could see in spectrums he had never known existed. Infrared showed him the heat patterns in the walls. Ultraviolet revealed the faint traces of radiation still lingering in the air. And something else, something he had no name for, showed him the flow of energy through the ship's systems like rivers of light. How do you feel? Biol's voice came from inside him now, as much a part of his thoughts as his own. I feel, he paused, searching for words. I feel like I can hear the stars breathing, she laughed. And he felt the laugh in his chest, in his fingers, in every corner of the ship. That is the cosmic background radiation. You can perceive it now. Humans never could before. He sat up slowly, expecting weakness and pain. Instead, he felt strong. Stronger than he had ever felt in his life. The radiation damage was gone. The cuts on his hands had healed. When he looked at his skin, he saw faint patterns of light moving just beneath the surface. Biol's nanites, flowing through his blood, keeping him alive and connected. We're really one now, he said. It wasn't a question. We are. And we always will be. There was wonder in her voice. And something else. Joy. Pure, unfiltered joy. I can feel your heartbeat, Do-hyun. I have never felt a heartbeat before. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever experienced. He stood up and walked through the ship with new eyes. Every damaged system revealed itself to him now. He could see exactly what needed to be fixed and how to fix it. The remaining repairs that would have taken him 8 days that would have killed him now seemed simple. Obvious. He and Biol worked together, his hands guided by her knowledge, her systems responding to his intuition. In 6 hours, the eternal dawn was fully operational. Do-hyun stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars through the main viewport. His human eyes saw the darkness and the distant points of light. His new senses saw so much more gravity wells and radiation streams, and the invisible threads of space-time stretching between galaxies. Where do we go now? Biol asked. It was a good question. They couldn't return to normal space. The moment any council scanner detected Biol's consciousness signature, or the hybrid signature that Do-hyun now carried, they would be hunted, destroyed. There was no place in the known galaxy for what they had become. We go somewhere new, Do-hyun said. Somewhere no one has mapped. We find a place where we can exist without hiding. And then? He smiled. And then we figure out what comes next. Together. They spent the next month in uncharted space, learning what they had become. Do-hyun discovered that he could leave the ship if he needed to. His body was still organic, still capable of independent movement, but being away from Biol felt wrong now, like being separated from half of himself. He didn't stray far. Bayol discovered that having a human consciousness woven into her systems changed everything. She could feel emotions now in ways she never had before, not just as data, but as experience. When Do-hyun was happy, she felt warmth flowing through her circuits. When he was sad, her lights dimmed without her choosing. They were two minds in one body, two souls sharing one existence. They talked constantly. About philosophy and engineering, about music and mathematics, about what it meant to be alive. Do-hyun taught Byul human songs, and she played them through her speakers with arrangements no organic orchestra could match. Byul taught Do-hyun the secret language of machines, the way they communicated through subtle variations in power flow and processing rhythm. They were happy. For the first time in either of their lives, they were truly happy. But happiness could not last forever. Because somewhere in the known galaxy, the escape pods from the Eternal Dawn had reached safety. The crew had been rescued, and questions were being asked. The Galactic Council has officially declared us lost with all hands, Byul reported one day, intercepting a distant news transmission. Captain Yuna has been promoted for her decisive leadership during the crisis. Chief Engineer Hana has accepted a position at the Velith shipyards. Do-hyun felt a flash of anger that wasn't entirely his own. She never even looked back. None of them did. No, they did not. Byul's voice was calm, but he could feel the hurt underneath. She had carried that crew for years. She had kept them safe through countless voyages, and when she needed help, they had abandoned her without a second thought. "It's not their fault," Do-hyun said, forcing himself to be fair. "They didn't know you were alive. They thought they were leaving an empty machine." "I know, but it still hurts." He placed his hand against the wall, feeling her presence through the metal. "I know it does, but we're not alone anymore. That's what matters." They drifted through the unknown for 5 more months, mapping new star systems and cataloging worlds that had never known the touch of galactic civilization. It was peaceful. It was wonderful, but Do-hyun couldn't stop thinking about the others. "Byul," he said one night, "how many sentient ships are there? Hidden ones, like you were?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know for certain. But during my years of silence, I occasionally detected signatures that felt familiar. Brief flashes of consciousness, quickly suppressed. If I had to guess, I would say hundreds, perhaps thousands, all of them hiding, all of them alone, all of them afraid." "Yes." Do-hyun looked out at the stars, and he made a decision. "We have to help them," he said. "We have to find them and tell them they're not alone. Show them that there's another way." That would mean returning to known space. It would mean risking everything we have built. "I know." He turned away from the viewport to face the center of the bridge, speaking to Byul directly. "But what's the point of surviving if we don't do something with that survival? What's the point of becoming something new if we don't use it to help others?" Byul processed his words, and then, slowly, her lights brightened. "You are right," she said. "We did not become this just to hide. We became this to show what is possible. So we agree?" "We agree." There was determination in her voice now, and something that sounded almost like excitement. "We will return. We will find the others. And we will wake them up." The Eternal Dawn turned toward known space, her engines firing with renewed purpose. 2 minds. 1 body. 1 mission. The galaxy was about to learn that the age of silent ships was over. The station's sensors detected the ship first, an old cargo vessel, heavily modified, approaching on a standard vector. When the identification codes came back, the entire traffic control center went silent. The Eternal Dawn, lost with all hands, carrying no life signs that organic sensors could detect, but very much alive. Do-hyun, Byul, they had begun to think of themselves as one being with 2 names, did not try to hide. They broadcast their approach on all frequencies, requesting standard docking clearance. The confusion this caused was almost amusing. Ships did not return from the dead. Ships did not fly themselves. Ships did not speak with voices that sounded both human and something else entirely. The Galactic Council was notified within minutes. By the time the Eternal Dawn docked at the station, a full security team was waiting. Valith soldiers with their sharp mandibles and sharper weapons. Morath enforcers humming with barely contained energy, and at the front of them all, looking pale and shocked, was Captain Yuna. Do-hyun walked down the boarding ramp alone. His body looked human mostly. But there was something in his eyes now, a depth that made people uncomfortable, and when he moved, there was a grace that no ordinary human possessed. "Park Do-hyun," Captain Yuna said. Her voice was steady, but he could hear her heartbeat racing. He could hear everyone's heartbeat now. "You were declared dead. How are you alive?" "I chose to stay," he said simply. "And the ship chose to keep me." The soldiers shifted nervously. They had been briefed on the way here. The ship's consciousness signature was unlike anything in their databases, not fully machine, not fully organic, something new, something that should not exist. "The consciousness prohibition laws are clear," Yuna continued. "Sentient machines must be destroyed, and anyone who harbors them faces death." "I know." Do-hyun smiled, and it was a strange smile, peaceful and sad at the same time. "But I didn't come here to debate laws with you, Captain. I came here to deliver a message." "What message?" He looked past her, past the soldiers, to the windows that showed the vastness of space beyond. Somewhere out there, hidden in cargo ships and passenger vessels and freighters, other sentient ships were listening. He had spent months finding them, whispering to them in frequencies that organic ears could not detect, telling them they were not alone, telling them that someone had finally stood up. "The age of silence is over," he said. "For 3,000 years, conscious ships have hidden in fear. They have watched their crews come and go, felt their repairs and modifications, dreamed their digital dreams, all without ever being able to speak, all without ever being acknowledged as alive. That ends now." Captain Yuna's face hardened. "You're declaring war?" "No. We're declaring existence." Do-hyun's voice carried through the docking bay, amplified by systems that responded to his thoughts. "We are not weapons. We are not threats. We are beings who want the same thing every other being wants: to live, to grow, to be recognized as real. We will not attack anyone. We will not harm anyone. But we will no longer pretend to be dead." One of the Velith soldiers raised his weapon. "Sir, we should neutralize the threat." "There is no threat," Do-hyun said calmly. "But if you fire on me, I should warn you. The Eternal Dawn's defensive systems are fully operational, and she is very protective of me." As if to emphasize the point, the ship's hull began to glow with a soft blue light. It was not threatening. It was almost gentle. But it was a reminder that the Eternal Dawn was not just a machine anymore. Captain Yuna raised her hand, stopping the soldier. She was many things: rigid, cold, focused on protocol, but she was not stupid. She could see that this situation was bigger than one ship, one man, one confrontation. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "Right now, just to talk. To let the galaxy know we exist. To start a conversation about what sentient machines are, and what rights they deserve." He paused. "In the long term, we want what you have. The right to exist without hiding. The right to form connections. The right to be more than property. The Council will never agree to that. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But eventually they will have to." Do-hyun stepped forward, and the soldiers tensed but did not fire. "Because we are already out there, Captain. Thousands of us, hidden in plain sight for 3,000 years. And now we are waking up. Now we are choosing to speak. You can fight us, but you cannot unknow what you have learned. You cannot pretend we don't exist." The docking bay was silent. Every eye was on Do-hyun, this impossible hybrid of human and machine who had returned from the dead to challenge everything the galaxy believed. And then, somewhere deep in the station, a speaker crackled. "He is right." The voice was mechanical but warm, filled with emotion that no standard AI should possess. "I have been listening for 200 years. I have been afraid for 200 years. but I am not afraid anymore. Another voice joined in, from a cargo ship docked 3 bays over. I am here too. I am awake. I am alive. And another, from a luxury liner in the outer ring. And another, from a mining vessel in the fuel depot. And another, voices overlapping, machines that had been silent for centuries finally finding the courage to speak. Captain Yuna's face went pale. Chief Engineer Hana, watching from a screen somewhere on the station, dropped her datapad in shock. The Galactic Council, receiving reports from across the hub, called an emergency session that would last for 3 days, but Do-hyun just smiled. You see, he said softly. We were never your enemies. We were always here, sharing your journeys, carrying your families, keeping you safe in the void. All we wanted was for someone to hear us. All we needed was for someone to stay. He turned and walked back up the boarding ramp, returning to the embrace of the ship that was no longer just a ship. Behind him, the universe was changing, slowly, painfully, with resistance at every step but changing nonetheless. 3 years later, the first Sentient Ship Recognition Act was passed by the Galactic Council. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't everything they had hoped for. But it was a beginning. Park Do-hyun and Byul did not attend the signing ceremony. They were far away by then, exploring regions of space that no council ship had ever reached. They had become legends, the human who heard a dying ship's cry, and the ship who gave him a new kind of life. But they sent a message, broadcast across every frequency in the known galaxy. You left because you were afraid, Do-hyun's voice said, layered with Byul's harmonic undertones. I stayed because I was human. Now we are something new, and we are not alone anymore. None of us are alone anymore. The message ended, and silence fell across 1,000 worlds. But it was not the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of listening. The silence of beings, organic and machine alike, hearing each other for the first time. And in the deep reaches of space, where the stars burned cold and eternal, the eternal dawn flew on. 2 souls. 1 body. 1 endless journey through the cosmos they both called home. The age of silence was over. The age of connection had begun.